Hello and welcome back to Chaotic Insights, where the TV show isn't the only thing that's chaotic. Heyo! Today we'll be talking about and breaking down episode 3, titled Unexpected. So grab a snack, start your laundry, and we'll dive right in. Episode summary. So there's no cold open to this episode. We get a last time on Chaotic that recaps the first two episodes, the pilot. After the theme song, we get our introduction to Hearing, where Kaz exchanges directal scales for a new Battle Gear scan. We see KR for the first time on the Vile Driver, but the blasters weren't working. So Blazer escapes, and then we cut to Tom's introduction to Peyton. Peyton and Tom battle, Peyton wins the battle, and Kaz gets a scan of the Vile Driver, but he destroys it in the process. So that's the episode we're working with here today. I think it's a fun one. Analysis. In this episode, we have the A plot of Tom battling Peyton, and then Kaz scanning the Vile Driver is the B plot. So the theme of this episode is to use strategy? Question mark. Peyton's whole mantra of unexpected is like a strategy motto. He uses his knowledge of the locations to surprise his opponent, Dom. And Kaz is playing the game behind the game. So he's using his relationships with creatures to get unique scans, and thus destroying it so he has the only copy. He has one of one unique scan. So both the A plot and the B plot kind of support this idea that the theme of the episode is strategy, because Peyton is using his knowledge and wisdom of the game to have a complete strategy in the game and end up winning, whereas he's playing the game behind the game, and he's using the strategy of getting unique scans, getting good cards, so therefore he can be a good player. That's that's what I've deduced. um, in this episode, in a lot of ways, is a continuation of the exposition, and I think that's probably why they have that last time on segment instead of a cold open, is because this is like the first time we really can tell a story. This is the first time we unite the core friend group. And to celebrate the first time uniting the core friend group, I'm going to talk about character designs a little bit later. Foreshadowing. But like, this is really the start of the show. Like, if the pilot was, this is everything you need to know to understand the stories, this is like the first time we get to tell a story, which I think is pretty exciting. I also think it does lay a lot of exposition because the nature of this episode is to finish that exposition from the first two episodes. Like, it is kind of a continuation. And at the end of this, at the end of this episode, when we get the four of them together, that's really when like this series starts to some extent. Let me know what you think about that. I feel crazy when I say that. But something I noticed that in this episode is they use the rule of three, and I don't know where the rule of three came from, so let me know if you do. But the rule of three is you have to tell your audience something three times before they like fully understand it. Where I noticed this was the writers trying to have the audience understand the mechanic that Peyton is Malvadine in the Drome and Tom is Maxor. And so they tell us this in multiple ways. Like, one, we get to see them set up their decks, we get to see them pick out their characters, and then we get to see them visually transform. We see the visual transformation of this is Tom, and now it is not Tom, it's Maxor. And then we get Melvadine and Peyton swirling into one. But then what really made me notice this is Peyton, not Peyton, Tom. Tom. He has line of Peyton or Malvadine or whatever. Like, he's referencing his opponent, and he goes Peyton or Malvadine or whatever, and he's like, whoa. Anyways, I thought that line specifically was like a really clever way to weave that information in like a natural way of this is kind of the third time you get that. And so it's really cementing of like, that's Peyton and Melvadine. It's Peyton and Melvadine or whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter, but you get it. You get it. That is him. And so it's really cementing in the audience's mind of like how this works. Chaotic does this a lot. Like, they remind their audience a lot that when they're in the drome, these aren't the actual characters, these are the players. Specifically when they cut away to kind of the Iron Man-esque technology void, like their human bubble code, if that makes sense. Let's read what I wrote. Especially when they cut to the human in the code bubble for their asides. So, yeah, what I wrote. You know what I mean? What's in my notes? Um, they cut away to the human in kind of this code bubble when they're like telling inside thoughts, and that's a mechanic that they use often to remind the audience that like, hey, this is a character in a situation, like play this is a character playing a character and not just the character themselves. You get it. We're moving on. But I just read that dialogue was an interesting and efficient way to convey that information. Next up, Kaz's whole B story in the beginning is the beginning to an overarching story that happens in these like first few episodes. And I think it's really interesting that the overarching story is kind of relegated to the B plot. Um, like when I think about this episode, when I go, oh, the unexpected episode, I'm like, that's the one where they introduce Peyton. And he's like kooky and using strategy and he wins or whatever. You know, like you remember the battle. I associate this episode with the A storyline. And when I think about Chaotic, I do think about the Vile Driver overarching story because, we have at least 3 episodes that touch upon this overarching story. But like, I don't think about it as, oh, like it's that episode. I just think about it as like that's chaotic. That's not the unexpected story. I think it's an interesting way to me of how they're doing that is, and it rewards the viewer for like watching the series, like each you can watch each individual story, each individual episode like as a newcomer, because there is a complete narrative there, but you get rewarded in the B story because when you come back again and again, it keeps referencing the past, if that makes sense. And so I don't know. I just think like the way they did it is so successful, at least for me as a youngin, that it's just it's just interesting. And then also, so I think it's interesting to have Tom's second battle ever that we see to be against a friend. Like I think it's important to see Tom lose because victory isn't as narratively fulfilling or like emotionally rewarding if you don't see the struggle, if you don't see the loss, if you don't see the obstacles in the way that like made you lead to this, big victory. And obviously, clearly, Tom is a sore loser. He's bad at it. He's bad at losing. As a as a certified Tom hater, I get to call Tom a sore loser. I do. He's a sore loser. He's like motivated by. I don't think he's motivated by winning and being good. I think he's more motivated by like fearing losing. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing of, do you want to win because you want to win, or do you want to win because you're scared to lose? And I think Tom is scared to lose because I think to him loss is embarrassing. And we really see this when Peyton wins, and then like immediately Tom is like, "You're awful. Like you won and you're gloating, and I hate you." And if Peyton wasn't like a cool, chill guy, they would not be friends because Tom like instantly made an enemy because he's a sore loser and he's bad at losing, right? But Peyton is fun and chill and cool, and so like now we have a fearsome foursome. You know what I mean? And what I also think, like seeing Peyton win also establishes two things. Like it establishes Tom is still kind of a newbie at this, of playing chaotic in the drone, and he's still kind of new to these like LARPing game mechanics, if you will. But it shows that one, he's not like a Mary Sue, which is an archetype of a character that has no obstacles, but it also proves that like Peyton is a good player, right? We establish Peyton right off the bat as someone with strategy who's good at this game and like has knowledge and is willing to share that knowledge. So we get kind of, I don't say a mentorship angle from Peyton, but like that's kind of what it's set up as, is like this is a character who can help us learn about the game itself, like the chaotic game. So, and that kind of juxtaposes like Sarah introduced as this is a character that will help us learn about how to play the game behind the game in Param. Also, like that's kind of what hearing does, is he helps us understand the game behind the game, Param. But Peyton is introduced as a character that helps us understand the game itself. Also, imagine if Tom's second battle was just with some rando. Like, I think it would be, like, even if he lost, it would be much less, like, emotionally fulfilling because, right, Tom would lose, he would throw his little temper tantrum, and then what? Right? Then he made an enemy, and that enemy doesn't come back. It's a one-off, right? Whereas this has, like, lasting consequences of, like, oh, he made a friend. So, next section, lore. So we have to talk about scanners again. I'm sorry. Obsessed with scanners. I guess one thing about me is I'm obsessed with scanners. And what this what this episode introduces just is something that I've always it's just never sat right with me. It's just never sat right with me. And let me say that one more time for effect. It just never sat right with me. Okay, crazy. And that is the transportation of objects. So my question is, Dractyl scales. Kaz brings hearing Dractyl scales, right? What Kaz did is he went to the overworld, he went to Dractyl's nest, and he raided it. You know what I mean? He brought back some ooey gooey scales for hearing to munch on. But Kaz did not take the treacherous journey from the overworld into the underworld. Like, he did not just go up there, pack a bag, his little backpack, grab some scales, and walk. He did not walk or, like, get a creature to, like, transport him. He did not walk, he did not fly, he did not boat down to the underworld. That's not something he did. You know what I mean? Like, because if that was something he did, maybe they probably would have emphasized, like, oh, he's tired, he's been on this journey, he's been on this quest, and finally at the end of it is a vile driver. No, they did not do that. You know what they did? Crazy things. Not crazy things, but you know what they did is he just showed up and he was like, hey, this is my friend Hearing. You know? And so they don't prove that this is some treacherous journey for him. Like, sure, maybe the raiding the Dractyl scales is treacherous, but like he did not take the passage from the overworld to the underworld. And so that makes it implied that he went to the overworld, grabbed the Dractyl scales, and then transported to Underworld City, right? And so that leads me to my question of, can you port with param objects? Right? Later in the series, we see Sarah with a can opener, and to me, that makes sense, right? Like, if you transport the clothes on your body, you can transport what's in your pockets. Like, he has a backpack, you can transport what's in the backpack. That makes sense to me. Sarah is in a can opener. Now, this also opens another question of like, does the can opener disappear when Sarah ports back to Chaotic or ports back to um, the real world? That's a question for another day. Because then also, why is there not just like real world objects all over Param? So they must like disappear. But the question is, can you port with Param objects? Because Kaz did not take that journey. Like, I think we can agree upon that. But it begs the question of like, if Kaz can port with Dractyl scales across Param, can he bring them into Chaotic? I would think not. Like, Dractyl scales smelly, stinky. Also, what else in Chaotic would you want to bring back? Like weapons? That seems dangerous. Food? Just eat it there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And so, if you can't bring objects from Param to Chaotic, but you can bring objects from Param to Param, so like, why are players not, you know, starting like the black market? They can pull up to the armory, grab a weapon, port down to the underworld, or are players just like not that interested in getting involved, right? At this point in the series, we know like Hearing has a relationship with Kaz, but like Hearing also has a relationship with Kaor, and you know what Kaor would be pleased about? If he got some like overworld weapons. If he got like a flux bauble. You know what I mean? These are my questions. These are my questions. Um, and so oh my gosh, my notes are funny. Um, I said one day shipping in Param. Like Cass could be the Amazon Prime of Param. But he doesn't. Like, well, I guess he is for Hearing, but like he could use that for so many he could get so many good things. if he just bribed people. I'm not saying that's moral, but I'm saying it's an option. Anyways, these are my questions, and so I think we'll have to keep an eye out if if this happens again in the future, or if it doesn't, right? If this is like a one-time thing, okay, whatever. Maybe he took the trek. But if it happens again, then like that's lore, that's game mechanics, that's world building, right? And that's what I mean by lore, is world building. The other thing I want to talk about is hearing has definitely eaten a human before, and I think we have to discuss this. This is important to me, and I'm bringing this up because hearing has eaten a human, and I don't think we've talked about this enough. So, like, Tom gets scared because hearing, like, jumps on him for the Dractyl scales, and Tom is like, ah, don't eat me, don't eat me. Wow, 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 Tom hater. But hearing goes, no, I wouldn't eat a human, like, too many bones. And I think that implies that hearing has eaten a human before, right? Because how would you know there are too many bones in humans if you haven't eaten a human, right? It's like eating, like eating a whole chicken. There's bones in that. You have wings, you have the thigh, you have the drumstick, you know? And so is hearing, does he not like chicken because there's bones? Or are there just more bones in a human? Over 200. These are the questions. And so I think Tom had a right to be scared, is because hearing definitely has eaten a human. And what if he enjoyed it? What if some people I know, they say the meat closest to the bone is the best part. Me, I don't know. Just give me a chicken breast. I don't want to have to deal with the bones. Me and hearing are alike in that way. But that doesn't mean anything. You know, if Hearing was desperate, he'd eat a human. Now, did he like cook the chicken or the chicken? Did he cook the human? Did he put sauce on it? I don't know. But I just think I just think he's definitely eaten a human before, and that's like me, eating banana pudding. If I ate banana pudding, that's good. But like, if I ate banana pudding and I was like, I probably wouldn't have that again, right? And then a banana pudding comes up to me and it's like, I'm scared, don't eat me. And I'd be like, ha ha, ha, don't worry, I don't eat banana pudding. What do you mean? Like, I could eat banana pudding. But here's the real kicker. I do like banana pudding, and I'd eat it again. So that wasn't a good analogy. Other lore we do establish that Blazer and Kaor, like in their standoff, that Blazer is a spy and a map maker, for the overworld, which, good for him. Good for him being a little cartographer in the underworld. Like, we need more maps. Because I don't understand. I don't understand how Param works. I don't. I mean, I do, but we need some more maps. That like I understand. So maybe I need to hire Blazer. But I think this encounter mirrors the episode 2 Nothalax Mesmar standoff. But what it does is it flips it on his head because in the original episode 2, like Nothalax is the villain. He's the spy. And Mesmar is like, no, no, this is my overworld. Oversimplification, but you get it. But here, we're in the underworld, and Blazer is the spy. And so I think it creates this nice sense of balance. And like, this will be covered in a later episode, but like, you don't really know who's the good guys and who's the bad guys between the overworld and the underworld. And I think this creates that sense of balance of like, in this episode, we're rooting for the underworld because Blazer's a spy. But in the first episode, in episode 2, we were rooting for the overworld because Nothalax is a spy. And that's politics for you. Other lore we get, Mepedians can turn invisible. They don't really go into that, but like, it's there. He also mentioned spectral viewers, so that's something that I'm like, that's another example of like in the first episode they like the rules of this world exist, but they didn't go into depth. That was just something like, oh, they alluded like a little reward for your second time around. Some other lore I have written down is real world butterfly exists in Param, which I think is interesting. Is it like the can opener, like the Dractyl scales, where like, oh, somebody just poured it in with a butterfly? That'd be funny. But this real world butterfly freaks Omar out. I mean, and good for him. Like he's seen weirder things, I would have to assume. But we it's a bug. Everybody gets to be scared at bugs at some point. And Omar also references that his old assistant is this two-headed skeleton that's in the corner, and we have to ask like what happened to him because I know flash forward, Bodil, who is an overworld person, like he has an assistant, and so I'm kind of viewing that like we have our Frankenstein and Igor like dynamic, but Omar doesn't have his Igor because he's just the skeleton in the closet, in the corner. Um, and then finally, under lore, world building. So Tom introduces Kaz to Peyton and Sarah. And then this brings up questions for me because does Kaz not know Peyton and Sarah? Like, to me, it seems like they would already be friends and like, yay, now we have a group. Everybody knows each other. But Tom is like, hey, these are the friends that I've made. And in what, 3 episodes, Tom has made 2 friends. And so him introducing Kaz to Peyton and Sarah because he doesn't know them, that brings up questions for me because Kaz has been here longer, an unspecified amount of time, but he's had adventures. He's been able to tell Tom these adventures. Tom's been able to think that he's crazy in the real world. Then Tom showed up and like realized it was all real, right? Does Kaz not have any friends at Chaotic? Like, sure, he made friends with Hearing, and that maybe that's why he's friends with Hearing is because he doesn't have any human friends that he was able to like bond with Hearing. And I'm pretty sure they tell us how they met later, but him and Hearing are buddies. But in the Battledrome, you like Kaz, you have no friends. And so that's a question of like, I really think they're trying to set up Kaz as like the like he's just a little bit nerdier than everybody else, which is not bad. I love being a nerd, but it's just interesting narratively. Like, how does he not have friends? Not how does he not, but I'm like, why would you enjoy going to Chaotic if you're there by yourself? My heart goes out to Kaz. So that is my lore world building section. They contributed lore. But now we're on to the fun facts. So, fun facts section, there's a Chaos stained glass window. I think that's cool. So I wrote it down in my notes. And now I'm telling you. Crazy. We have to talk about this. This is such a serious topic, and I need you to understand how seriously I take this. The Maxor animation in Chaotic is truly incredible. It's so crazy. They definitely have 2 different like animation puppets for Maxor, and I can tell, I can tell you the difference because one looks crazy and one is normal. Um, and I didn't really realize until I was going back through the episode. I only noticed the second time that they used the normal Maxor animation puppet in this episode, and I'm like, one so soon. Then why do we get the crazy one later? I'll bring it up, don't worry. But and even in the theme song, they used the weird animation puppet for Maxor in the theme song. And that is so crazy to me. Why does he look like that? Why does he look like that? And so, like, okay, the episode 1 Maxor and the theme song Maxor looks absolutely crazy. And I'll put a picture here somewhere. His hair is Albert Einstein. It goes in every single direction. His eyes they're scared. He has no nose, and he does not look like the calm, cool, confident leader of the overworld that I know to be true. He just looks crazy and like a klutz, and I cannot tell you why. But and the hair, it's the hair that really gets me. But then this episode, we get his hair is straight up like the card. He looks like the card, which I think is important, and he looks normal. We have stronger angles. It's more it's more strong, clean, confident. This is a leader. I can stand behind him. But here's the thing. This matters to me so much. This matters to me so much. The good, the first episode, not hashtag not my KR. KR, what am I talking about? Hashtag not my Maxor. And every time I look at him, I just feel sad. I'm like, why'd they have to do with him like that? And I've always wondered, like, hey, Maxor, what's your hair care routine? Because how do you just get it to stick straight up? Is it genetic or is he like using some kind of mousse? But in episode 1 to episode 3, the transformation. So I think that's my question to Maxor isn't what's your hair care routine? It's more so how did you change your hair care routine to become the successful leader that you are today and keep it in like that late that stays. What am I talking about? Oh my gosh. It matters to me so much. And the good Maxor, you know when it's a good Maxor. But the bad Maxor, ugh, I hate I hate it. He's just so bad. And that's my professional opinion as a person who watches Chaotic. And then while we're talking about character design, I will mention, so we see Kaor in this episode, and it matters to me so much that Kaor has a little beak. Like, oh my gosh. Like it just completes the illusion. Like Kaor has to have a little beak, and if he doesn't have a little beak, that's not Kaor. But Kaor, the Kaor I know, has just a little beak. So that's all I'll say on that. So while we're talking about character design, I think we can talk about the character design of the group. What's interesting is I feel like as somebody who has like design experience, my instinct for these characters would be to dress them in a way that aligns with the tribes that they align with, right? Because each character matches a tribe. Tom Overworld, Kaz Underworld, Peyton Mapedian, and Sarah Danian. And like that's kind of how like narratively they're set up to introduce us to our world. And like that's true to some extent. Like Tom wears blue for Overworld, Peyton wears yellow shirt, and I guess you could argue Kaz has the red hair for the underworld, but this all falls apart with like Kaz's outfit. He's just wearing green, and then Sarah, she doesn't have brown at all. Not even a little bit. Not hair, not accessories. Peyton's the one with the brown hair. She's dressed up like she's cosplaying a scanner. She's just red, black, and white. You know what I mean? A zebra with a sunburn, and it's cute. Don't get me wrong, but like from a design perspective, she's not inherently flagging Danian, right? So if they're not used to flag their tribes, then what are they doing? I do think it's kind of interesting that they use green as like this neutral color. So sure, like, Peyton's wearing yellow and Tom's wearing blue and Kaz has his red. But like Peyton is paired with green and Kaz is also wearing green. And they use it as kind of like this base, like just neutral color. Like it's the color of location, but it's not associated with a tribe, and so it's just something that they can all wear and look cohesive while not specifically flagging out, like to make them look like normal characters and not just like walking billboards for a tribe. So I think that's interesting decision making, but I think what we need to do is go character by character. Go character by character, if you will. So let's start off with Tom. So Tom wears blue, right? Um, Flags the overworld, but it's also blue is associated with very noble qualities, and like good virtues. Think about like Ravenclaw and Harry Potter, wise and noble and whatnot. You know, it's just a good color, right? And you can tell that it's the noble blue and not like it's not depressing sadness blue because of the saturation. The blue on his jeans they're blue. You know what I mean? They're not faded. They're not gray at all. Like they are so saturated blue. And so you can tell that that's the happiness blue, or not the happiness blue. That's a positively associated blue, and not like he's not like depressed and sad, like a rainy day kind of blue. And I also think he's dressed very sensibly. He has a nice graphic tee, he's wearing jeans, long sleeve shirt. Like you can trek through Param in this outfit. He has a nice sensible tennis shoe. He can run, he can play, he can laugh. Tom is, like, as I've discussed before, Tom is our stand in character for the audience. We are supposed to look at him and experience the story through his perspective. And so he's dressed in a very kind of neutral way. Like, all of us can rock a t shirt and jeans. Maybe not all of us put a cute little long sleeve shirt underneath it, but like a graphic tee and jeans is just something that everybody can put on. It's an everyday outfit for an everyday person. And so you can feel like you are an everyday chaotic player when you associate with Tom, right? And it's like he's not like dressed too cool, he's not dressed too nerdy. Like on that hierarchical like spectrum, he's pretty in the middle. Like, and I think that goes with his character as well. Like he's not too cool for school and he's not like the nerd, but he's your everyday character. He's your insert character. Next up, we have Peyton. So Peyton has a loose fitted, unbuttoned button down that matches his like go to flow, loose, silly personality, right? And so I think this is a character where his outfit matches his personality, whereas the rest more indicate like style and like their hierarchical place in like society. His is the most like he's loose, he's go with the flow, he's unexpected, and so that matches his outfit. And he has shorts. Sure, why not? They're cargo shorts. Like, you know, he frequents the desert. Now, in the desert, you're supposed to wear long clothes to like stay out of the sun, but it's hot where Peyton hangs out in Param. And also, he has a sensible shoe. Unlike Sarah, who's wearing red capris, a black cropped baseball shirt, a white undershirt for modesty, don't get me wrong, and sandals. She's wearing sandals. Not even sandals with straps. She's wearing like slip-on sandals. And she's known for being the queen of scan questing, but it is not sandals are not a very sensible shoe. And they don't even have a strap on the back. She's wearing slides, you know what I mean? Like slides are a college shower shoe. They are not for trekking through the desert. They're not for going from the underworld to the overworld. They are not for scan questing. Girl, get yourself, invest in a nice pair of tennis shoes, and I assure you, you will have so much more ease getting around Barum. It's crazy that she's wearing sandals. But I do think like the way she's designed, she's meant to be fashionable and cool. And so the sandals and the crop and like even the cropped arms, the baseball shirt, they show that she's dressed more stylish, she's more cool. Whereas Kaz, he's wearing a sensible boot, cargo pants, a cargo vest, and a green t-shirt. Um, and he has lots of pockets for adventure. He's like a little adventurer, a little Indiana Jones in his cargo suit, his cargo outfit. Um, but he's meant to be a little bit more nerdy, and I think cargo shorts at the time are like fine, but the cargo vest that's more for fly fit fishing, and he's the only one with glasses. Not to be stereotypical, but like it is like kind of a stereotypical indicator of like your smartness, intelligent nerd character. He's just supposed to be a little uncool. But what makes me interested in Kaz's design is reflecting on it from the now. And so Kaz is wearing a lot of these like neutral, he's wearing these like browns and green. It's mostly green, but like, brown, green. And, he's kind of in these neutrals where, so when you think about the trend cycle, the way the fashion trend cycle works is we go through these periods where brown is the neutral and we go through periods where black is the neutral. So if you think about like the 90s where brown was just everywhere. You had your brown ashtrays, you go into your brown McDonald's and you order your brown hamburger. Um, it's like that was a period where brown was considered the neutral. Whereas it swings in the early 2000s where black becomes the neutral, um, and like kind of the default, if you will. And so when this show was made, we were in a period where black was the default. And so you kind of see that with Tom and Sarah. Like Tom being your self-insert character, he's meant to be very neutral. He's wearing gray. Gray is a form of black, like gray is a form of black, and it's you know self-insert. His gray is supposed to be very neutral. It's supposed to be like you can be in his shoes. And Sarah's wearing black. Good for her. It's not a statement. She's just wearing something easy. But right now we're in the trend cycle. We're back in the trend cycle where brown is considered a neutral again because before it was like, ugh, brown is so dirty and icky and gross. The color of dirt. That's crazy. But like this year, 2025's Pantone color of the year is like a chocolate mousse brown beige. You know what I mean? And it's supposed to represent like this elegant, suave espresso martini, like fancy. That's the vibes Brown is giving these days. It's like mature and fancy, and I'm James Bond. Whereas black is now like because it's no longer considered a neutral, black is like the statement color. And so it's interesting looking at these designs where this is flipped because Back in the day, Sarah and Tom were they were wearing neutrals. They look very normal, and that's good for them. Whereas like Pa- Peyton and Kaz, they were supposed to stand out. They were wearing like the browns and greens and what we now consider as very neutrals. But like back in the day, those like stood out. They were like, wow, they're wearing brown and green. They're so quirky and different. That's so unexpected from Peyton, and that's so nerdy of Kaz. And like these are the archetypes we're going to put our characters into. And so I think it's interesting that the way their character designs are supposed to represent them in their intended social status of like Peyton is kind of out there because he's wearing statement colors, and Kaz is kind of nerdy because he's wearing these statement colors, whereas Tom and Sarah are more the cool ones. Um, and like I wrote down here their intended social status. So Tom is your audience stand-in character, and Kaz is your nerdy best friend, and Peyton he's introduced as the good chaotic player, and Sarah's introduced as the scan quester. And so you don't see their outfits represent their personality type all that much, so much as like, yeah, their intended social status. But they're also dressed in a way that like anybody can dress like this. They're very normal people to some extent. Like, sure, not everybody is wearing a fly fishing outfit to school, but like anybody can wear a fly fishing outfit to school. You're right. Anybody can wear cargo shorts and a button-down t-shirt. Anybody can wear a capri pant. They're not like in these like outlandish costumes that like maybe later we see the Codemasters in. They're everyday people and we're meant to relate to them. All in all, I think this was a decent episode. I enjoy this episode. When I rewatch the series, I normally skip the first two episodes and I start with this one because I just think it's solid. You get a good match. They explain the game mechanics, and you also get the start of an overarching series for Kaz that I think really represents the chaotic experience. And, it's foundational for the show. With that, if there's anything I missed, let me know. If anything you want to see, let me know. With that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.